So what are you looking at any indicators for, I know that you're like buying kind of like call options on projects shifting their tokenomics, and you're doing that via pairs trades against ETH, which I think is very intelligent portfolio construction. I'll tell you what I'm looking at as like a breakout indicator for the whole market when big capital inflows come in and support the valuable projects, the Bitcoins of the world and the scams alike. Um, I know I've talked your ear off about the BTC SPY ratio, but I think it's smarter to look at IBIT versus SPY, the ETF, because they have the same open and close. They're both New York hour products, and we're in a solid uptrend. And I think if IBIT SPY, which is currently trading point oh 0.09, if that approaches or breaks through the cycle highs, which would be point 0.1, I think that will be a signal to the participant base that Bitcoin is decorrelating to the upside, and I think that's when capital really starts to flow into crypto, and we can start to see some mania-like moves again. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like as you always say, it's good to watch the SPX BTC ratio. Um,
Any others we should be looking at?
the one that really baffles me right now is Bitcoin Gold. I mean, gold has just been on an absolute tear, and I think a lot of it is people searching for a new reserve currency. A lot of it is, in a multipolar world where you can't rely on the hegemon to keep a stable currency. What do you do? You buy gold, and if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin's done reasonably well relative to equity markets. I mean, you see a massive equity market collapse, and Bitcoin, holds up okay from what was it, from the peak to trough on Nasdaq. Nasdaq went down 25%. It's pretty nuts, huh?
Yeah.
From peak to trough on BTC, we went down the 32%. That's pretty damn good. It's a pretty damn good ratio for an asset like this. And I do think a lot of that was also because a ton of people were in the market trying to buy and like pushing it up to that 109 level because there was just rampant speculation on the SBR, which turned out to be false. So like I would classify, I would really think about it without that. Like how much did Bitcoin go down because equity started collapsing? That probably started at 96 down to 74, which is only 23%. So if you really think about this, Bitcoin's performed extremely well.
Yeah.
And I think a portion of that is people allocating to Bitcoin for the longer term in the same way that they're allocating to gold. If that wasn't happening, I would have expected Bitcoin to be back in the 60s with S&P crashing so hard. I mean, look, NASDAQ is down to, it got down to January 24 prices. It got, April 19th when Bitcoin was substantially lower than it was today.
I mean, this is telling you this is part of the extremely bullish long-term story for Bitcoin. Just back to gold for a second. Like there's one big actor buying a lot of gold right now. It's the People's Bank of China. Like they publish their reserves and they've been adding to their gold reserves for 5 consecutive months now. And I think part of this is like they own a lot of US treasuries. Mm-hmm. As the US and China go through this ugly divorce, China's selling off its US treasuries and they have to put the money somewhere, right? And there aren't a lot of alternatives right now. So they're really stashing physical and financial gold on their balance sheet. That's going to continue. And China alone can push the price of gold up quite a lot. I'm not a particularly good gold trader. I wouldn't, mm-hmm. I did call this trend, but I'm not like heavily invested in it personally because it's not a market that I follow the way that I like to in order to invest heavily in something. But ultimately, like, yes, gold will continue to go up. I think Bitcoin is ultimately a much better alternative reserve currency than gold. Gold had its heyday. Also, gold can literally trade sideways or down for decades. Like maybe Bitcoin can too, but it hasn't yet. So I have a lot more confidence in Bitcoin, like catching up with gold than I do with gold starting to trade like Bitcoin.
I'll just leave you with this, and I'll ask you to think about it. We are in the midst of a generational shift in economic policy and general approach to geopolitics. We are genuinely entering into a time of multipolarity. I think that warrants a decade-long bull run. I mean, that's just my take.
Yeah, but what does that look like? Like gold might double in a decade, but Bitcoin could 10x.
Yeah, I'm not saying that gold's going to outperform BTC, but I mean, it has been doing extremely well relative to BTC, and that's because why? It's the first place that people go.
Yeah.
Right. Bitcoin is not. It's going to take longer for Bitcoin, which has been around for 15, 16 years now, to replace something that has been traded for 5,000 years. It's going to take a lot longer than 15, 16 years. It might take 20.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping it takes 5, but that's good. Maybe I should go and buy a little more gold. I don't have enough to move the needle. I still think though,
make sure some of it's physical.
If gold sells off 60%, it's going to be at around basically around $2,000 an ounce, which is a level that 3 years ago would have been considered like screamingly expensive, all-time highs in nominal terms. If Bitcoin sells off 60%, I think that's kind of a level where you look at it and you say, this is the best trade of a lifetime. So that's kind of your downside, I think, for both assets. Upside for gold is like a 2-bagger over 5 to 10 years. Upside for Bitcoin's like a 5 to 10 bagger over that same time period. So to me, the risk reward looks better in Bitcoin, but I will concede that gold has more of a track record.
It's also portfolio construction, right?
Yeah, they're decorrelated for sure.
It's gold is up 10%, Bitcoin's down 25%. Wow, you can buy a lot more Bitcoin now if you rebalance your portfolio. Some of that has to be taken into account, which is what I I personally did that. I regret this, but I sold gold to buy BT because my gold position had just absolutely this is one of those times, by the way, I wish there's better way for me to tax loss harvest, because I sold gold for a profit and bought BTC and I'm down. So I might have to get in and out of that thing to take some losses.
You can move to the US version
because on paper I made money this year. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that at some point I think that trend's going to reverse, but at least for the next 6 to 12 months, I'm very bullish on gold and gold miners as well. And don't forget, you can buy options if you really want to be crazy and get juiced returns on gold. And the other thing is, I just think that there's also a higher probability of gold going up than Bitcoin, because gold
over what time frame?
In the next year or so. Like, really? I think there's probably a gold is up from this point, I think, in probably 80% of the scenarios, and Bitcoin's up probably in like in 60% of the scenarios.
I see what you mean now.
Right. So that's why I like it as part of the portfolio.
I agree. I touche on portfolio construction. I totally concede that. I think your expected value of percentage returns is higher for $1 in Bitcoin than gold, but I will concede that it's going to be a much more volatile journey in Bitcoin than gold. And it makes sense to add gold to the portfolio to diversify and give your book a higher sharp so that you can take bigger drawdowns in Bitcoin, which has the bigger upside potential. That's a very smart point.
And then reallocate.